Are you ready?
Are you ready?
I guess I am.
I guess we are.
All right. Yeah, this is take two. And as John says, you're never going to hear take one.
Nope.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Jon Peckman podcast, and we're live here in the Connecticut Valley School of Music podcast studio. And we're switching it up tonight. With us in the guest chair is the man himself, the star of the Jon Peckman Show. Mr. Jon Peckman, I'm your host, sitting in the host chair. I'm going to be your host tonight, Mr. Dave Kuzminski. So welcome, John.
Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks for...
Nice place you got here. I said that before. I say it again.
Yeah.
Wow,
well, you know,
cool.
It's happening, man. It's happening. So, again, this is episode number 16.
Whoa.
And who would have thought we would have... had so many of it. We've had a great array of guests that you've interviewed through the 16 weeks that we've been here in the studio. So how have you been?
Oh, fine. Fine. Yeah, fine.
So tell me, I mean, you and I go back a long time here at the store.
We do.
And you know, you and Matt, and but you've been around the band scene in Connecticut longer than that.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
I don't know. It's up to you. You want to? We'll start from me being here and then go back, or start from the beginning.
Yeah, that's
who
fine.
Who knows?
That's fine.
Speaking of Matt, I mean, so we had Matt Starr on a couple weeks ago, Ace Frehley drummer, and I took over for him teaching here. He was teaching here, probably around the turn of the century.
Yeah,
I would say, right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember quite how it happened. I guess he probably was moving to California.
Correct.
And he was like, hey, I'm teaching at this place in Portland. You want to take over my gig if you want? And I was teaching a little bit here and there, but not taking it seriously. And then I was like, all right. So I came in and took over his students and then kept it rolling from there. And here we are.
Yeah,
20-something years
I think
later.
that started, you know, I think Matt was gigging also here and so forth. And he would say, hey, I can't make next week, but I got a replacement for me to take my students. And lo and behold, you walked in the door.
Oh, boy.
And I think that was the start of it. You occasionally filled in for when he was gigging here.
Right.
And then when he's decided to move west to greener pastures and so forth.
Yep, that makes sense.
You stepped in. So
I did.
That's great. So
I did.
So how did that work out? I mean, I think
the teaching thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. I mean, I had taught here and there, kind of doing it myself, going to people's houses and stuff, and it was. I enjoyed. I think it came at the right time. I just kind of started teaching. It added another thing to my portfolio, or however you want to put it, so I didn't have to depend on gigs exclusively. And then I, at first, just thought, okay, I'll do it because I'm able to, and because I'm here. And then the more I got into it, I was like, you know what? I really enjoy that. I enjoy teaching. Yeah. Rather than just, all right, it's just something I can do. And it was this place that got me started, and took it more
I think
seriously.
Teaching goes is that, and just speaking for myself, is that, when you start to connect with students and getting things happening, it's fulfilling. I don't know about if you feel the same way.
I do. I definitely do. I remember. Yeah, I was only, I guess as anyone would do maybe at first, especially when I was 20 years younger, I was only thinking about myself and what it added to me, to me. And I remember the first feeling of like, having a little kid come in and teaching and trying to teach them some things, and then getting to the point where I said, hey, let's get your mom down here and show her what you're doing. And to have the mom look at her own kid in awe, just like, how, wow, this is amazing.
You got him to do that?
Yeah. And then I realized, it sounds, I don't know if it's corny or what, but that I get to be witness to this thing going on between parents and their kids. That became kind of my focus. I was like, wow, this is a cool moment to get to see over and over. That's part of my motivation.
Well, and again, from our, heritage here at Connecticut Valley, obviously my wife and I bought the store in 1983 and so forth. And primarily the focus of the store is not so much the retail, but the school part of it, and teaching students. And that's where our forte is. And, Yeah, I mean, you stepped into that, and you enhanced that tremendously. As far as
Thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't, I just kind of let it happen. And I do, and I still really, I get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
And the kids are hilarious. Like, I don't have children myself, so having children in my life is really cool. I like it. I enjoy it every day. Kids are a riot.
Yeah.
I have something to laugh about every day working with them,
Well, and it's you hear the saying, out of the mouth is babes,
Yeah.
and some of the stuff that comes out of these students it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool.
Yep.
So,
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and it's fun, and I like, whatever. I mean, when I was young, I had when I think back, I had many adults. I was kind of a nerdy kid, but even from librarians to teachers to older neighbors in the neighborhood, I had a lot of really cool older people that helped me with my interests along. And I look at it like, okay, I get to be that guy to these kids.
Sure.
So in my mind, I'm just like, okay, this all kind of makes sense,
And speaking of adults, I mean, you not only teach the young guys, but you got you got quite a few adult
I'll
students
teach
that come
anyone.
in,
I'll teach anyone.
and it's cool to have them come in and say, obviously I born and brought up in this town, and a lot of the people that come in, man, John taught me stuff that I'd never thought I'd play. So it's like great. And it's connecting with them, and you have that vibe to. And I know you and I've played together numerous times throughout the years, and I applaud you on your, and I call you the chameleon because you're thrown into any situation and you make it work, whether it's jazz, whether it's funk. And I remember talking about that Dixieland gig over at Wesleyan.
I'll never forget that.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing. And to be able to do that and to not overplay but to enhance the thing, that's what it's all about.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that takes us to the actual beginning, but I don't know if you were like this or how many people are like this, but maybe a lot of musicians, but I loved music. Like, I love listening to records. When I was a little kid, I had my favorite toy was this little fold-up record player, and I had all my 45s on a plunger.
Okay.
And that I was just into, I don't know why, just from the minute that I discovered that I remember looking over my dad's shoulder when he was holding me at the record spinning. So it was just an obsession to listen to music. And so that's been a lifelong thing. And then I just get into so many different, because I have the most unfaithful ear.
Yep.
Like I'm into something and then I move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And go back too. But I don't know, maybe that has something to do with what you're saying, that I can play a lot of styles because I love a lot of styles. I've spent a lot of time listening and playing along to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So when it comes time, Dixieland was a little bit of a stretch, but I was like,
it worked.
Well, like you say, you got to know how to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially if you don't know as a drummer. That's what I learned is like, you just kind of like check it out.
Yeah.
Listen to what's going on and figure out what's the least, at least while you're figuring out, what's the least you can interject while you're still listening, and then figure out like, okay, how do I get in this flow instead of just coming in and thinking that you know what you're doing when you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. And, but, being able to play with, whether it's R&B, whether it's funk, whether it's, straight ahead rock, or like you say, swing, jazz, or whatever. It's, there are so many genres of music that, obviously that both you and I have been exposed to throughout the years, and, by your parents, my parents, and so forth. And I know your dad played a big part of that in your life as far as that goes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. My parents were into music, not musicians, but, they came of age during the golden age of rock and roll. My dad graduated year of 1955 out of Pittsburgh. So, rock and roll fever.
Yeah.
They were right there, both my mom and my dad. So I suppose all kids are, well, maybe some kids are into music, but I mean, you think like the initial explosion of rock and roll and R&B was huge.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and then you find like the next half a generation, it was the Beatles. For my parents, who were a little bit older, but it's like music was such a big part of their life.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, So my family's from Pittsburgh. My mom met my dad because my mom was going to see this band. She was friends with the bass player, and he said, "Oh, you should meet my brother. He's a nice guy." So my parents met at a gig.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. My uncle Rob was the bass player.
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh, hey, you'd like my brother."
Cool.
So I came from a gig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is how it all started. So
being from Pittsburgh, obviously you're a Steelers fan, correct?
Oh yeah,
through and through.
hardcore. yeah. That was just the way it was.
Yeah,
growing up.
exactly.
Yep.
I think that's the thing. When you're kind of, you have that lineage and you're exposed to that, and it's hard. It becomes infectious.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and it just, and especially when you're young, you're like a sponge, and you think that. Now, did your parents? What did your parents think of the Beatles?
The Beatles. Actually, my mom saw the Beatles, which is
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of heavy. They didn't like the Beatles. So they were a little bit older. So I think at the time, it was kind of teen. It was like teen garbage.
Okay.
They were like, and also.
You mean bubblegum?
Yeah, I don't think that because I mean the early Beatles, it's like they were doing when Beatlemania blew up, they were doing Please Mr. Postman. They were doing R&B covers.
Yeah.
And my parents were R&B fans, being from Pittsburgh, a more urban environment. They're like, what do we need? I don't need to hear, these English guys singing this stuff.
Right.
So they dismissed it and completely didn't pay any attention to it. I think my mom got dragged to the show.
Yeah.
And she's, you couldn't hear anything. Everybody was screaming. And my dad never really cared for him. And then, but I had another uncle. So two uncles. I had a musician uncle, and then I had another uncle who was in the music business in Chicago.
Yep.
And he worked for Capitol Records, so he would send promos to the house. So we always had the new Beatle album in the house, whether we wanted it or not, because he would just send us promos. And I think my parents started to pay attention around Revolver when it became less teeny bopper. And so from then on, they were like, "Oh, we like the Beatles, so Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, White Album." Like my parents like those Beatles, but they don't like anything before that.
The Ed Sullivan vintage.
Yeah, they just didn't get it. I remember, as a matter of fact, I remember my dad saying he had a friend of his. They were at a bar the night that the Beatles came on, and his friend said, "We're watching History right now," and my dad was like,
Who would have thunk?
Not interested. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But that was definitely history. My God.
That's what they say.
Yes.
I came along later, but Beatles from day one in my house. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So gigging wise, I mean, obviously you grew up in Wallingford.
Yep.
And then you graduated high school. I assume you played music through high school.
Oh yeah. Yep. I think I first started taking drum lessons in 5th grade. At Highland School in Wallingford. I don't remember who my instructor was. He was like an older gentleman. We learned on the pad, like we used to.
Yeah.
And I remember, a 5-stroke roll, like, whoa, it was kind of mind blowing. But I learned how to read music by then, just by taking lessons at school.
Yep.
And then by the time I got to middle school, which was Moran, we had a really, really cool, really excellent music teacher called Mr. Fred Rosamondo. He was awesome. He was really cool. He had long hair. He was cool.
Yeah,
He was like a
okay.
cool guy. And he was really, really good. He really got us motivated. Great musician, great player, really enthusiastic. And he really encouraged me a lot. And so,
what was his instrument?
he's primarily a piano player.
Oh, okay, all right.
But you know how it is. He had to kind of play a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
kind of pick up whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually he wasn't a drummer, but I think back now to, there were drum lessons. I would go for class and he would teach 4 or 5, 6 of us drums.
Yeah.
And I still remember some of the things he showed us.
Good.
Yeah. He was great.
Well, a lot of that stuff is, it's fundamental, but it's, it's something that you kind of have to learn, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things that I know a lot of people that, come in. And I don't know if you've experienced the same thing teaching, but, a lot of people, that they try to teach themselves to, to play, and then they get to a certain point, and it's like hitting a wall, and they say, "Well, now I think I maybe should take some lessons." And then when they take some lessons, then they come in and you find out, or they find out, that they've got all of these bad habits they've have to overcome to unlearn.
That's a tough one.
And unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast.
Yep. That is. Yeah, it depends on what you want to do with your playing, but yeah, I know what you mean. I find that's true. Yeah, I think maybe ideally, like, you get your technique together when you're young and you're used to being told that you need to practice, and you put that time in, is valuable. I think.
And getting the technique down is one thing, but again, getting to be able to apply that technique to fit into a musical situation, whatever it is. Sometimes that students have that wall that well, I know how to play a 7-stroke roll or 5-stroke or triplets or whatever, but how do I do a fill and listen to the band and whatever to make it happen?
It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime study.
Sure.
But I try to whatever, but in my teaching thing, especially if they're younger, I try to gear towards performance, just to get them to kind of play. Unlike, I don't know if it's whether it's to their detriment of their long-term education, but rather than when I was a kid, I played drum pad for 2 years. And then my parents were funny. They didn't know, and I didn't know. Nobody knew anything. One year for Christmas, Santa brought me a set of hi-hats. Only. Okay. I had no other drums.
Okay.
So I just had the drum pad and hi-hats, and I played those hi-hats for a year.
Nice.
That's all I had. I would hit the couch and make drum sets out of a dog bed or anything that was around, trying to emulate the sounds I heard. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but by the time I got a drum kit, I was like,
oh man.
Yeah.
It's just like a whole new world.
I was ready for it. But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say that kids don't have the patience now, because I think kids are all the same wherever. But I try to kind of move them right along into playing, and then try to address technique as we go to kind of get two streams going. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because a lot of and I think it's just inherent of just the society we live in today. It's like everybody wants instant gratification.
I know.
And a lot of times that it just doesn't all happen like that.
It's true. It's true. I have this weird thing that I do occasionally. Sometimes, I don't know if you ever have this experience, but it's hard. Since I've mastered the instrument of the drums, it's hard to remember that level of frustration or remember what it's like to hit a wall.
Yeah.
And so occasionally, like, I started as a bass. I thought I wanted to play bass when I was 12, 13. So my parents signed me up for bass lessons, and I was terrible. I never practiced. I didn't remember the names of the notes and everything. So I quit and then got involved with drums. But to this day, when I started teaching seriously, I picked the bass up again after many years and kind of taught myself enough again to not only learn how to play with my students, but also remember what it's like to learn.
Right.
So I'm more patient with my kids.
Sure.
And then recently, my new thing is the mountain dulcimer. I took up this new instrument, and I practice, and I'm not that good yet, but I practice every day. Like every day I take that thing down and I practice. I watch YouTube clips to remind myself of what it's like to set a goal and try and reach it, because it's easy to forget that when you stick with one instrument.
I've seen a couple of your clips on Facebook. Nice.
Getting there. I'm getting there.
Well, that's the thing,
I try to do that as my continuing education. I try to remind myself what it's like to feel frustrated and work at a goal and then achieve it, so that I can coach my kids through the same experience.
See, now we're going to have to widen your biography out on the website.
I don't know
to
about
be
that.
Percussion and dulcimer.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
So, and going back to high school, and I know you've played a litany of bands and so forth.
Sure.
How did your professional, playing career begin? Was that back in high school?
Yeah. All right. So, junior high, I was a Mr. Big Shot drummer. back in the day, and then got to high school and had to start at the bottom again, as we all do. Had another really good band director in a different way. Charles Houlihan at Sheehan was teaching back then, and it was a different experience, but he straightened me out in a lot of other different ways. And then somewhere in there, probably junior high, my parents, much like here at Connecticut Valley, took me to a place for bass lessons. And the bass teacher left the room probably to use the bathroom or whatever, and there were drums there, and I hopped on the drums and started fooling around because my uncle had a drum kit. So when I would go back to Pittsburgh, I would fool around. Mm-hmm. And bass teacher comes back and he goes, "You play drums?" And I was like, "No, I was just fooling around." And he goes, You sound like you can play drums." And I was like, "Well, I didn't know." And then he goes, "Can I be honest with you? You should quit bass and play drum. You sound like more like a drummer." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And he goes, "Well, let me introduce you to the drum teacher." And he goes upstairs, and the drum teacher was Vic Steffens, was a guy called Vic Steffens, who's been around. I'm going to get him in here one day, I hope. But he was, in the bar scene, played in the scratch band way back in the day. He was around, really, really good drummer. And so he was doing what I was doing gigs and teaching drums. And he straightened me out, immediately. I knew how to read a little bit, but I took lessons from him for, years, a handful of years.
Yeah.
And it was great. He straightened me out. He put me on a couple of books that I still use to teach my kids, and then was just the answer guy. I would just ask him, because I was listening to records trying to figure out what's this, what's that, what's this, what's that. So I was with him for years, and then somewhere in the middle of high school, he decided that he was going to quit playing gigs and start a studio and get involved in the studio business. Uh-huh. And he just was like, you're going to start subbing for some of my gigs. And I was like a junior in high school.
Okay.
What? He's like, "Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." So he would call and say, "I can't do the gig, but I got a sub. He's really good. You'll love him." Okay. And so my parents would have to drive me to these bar gigs, and I would walk in, and, because everybody knew Vic back then, and he would just say, "I know he's a kid, but just tell him what to do, slap him around. Just, he'll be fine. He's, he'll pay attention. You just tell him what to do." Yeah. And so they would bring me in with my parents, and they'd be like, "This dude's a kid," but, I really wanted to do it. Yep. I think I started like in oldies bands or something. There was like a rock and roll band he was playing with, and I kind of knew those songs, and I would just, the band leader would be like, "Just watch me. Yep. Watch me for the stop times, watch me for the count-offs and whatever." And I just kept my eyes peeled, no rehearsal, and just figured it out, and maybe got through it. Okay. Cool. Next time, you hear how next time, don't mess that one up. And I would get paid.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, man. I was like, this is great. So he just passed my name around to the various different bands that he would be playing with. This is back in the day. He was involved in a couple, 3, 4 things. And I kind of took over his drum chair, so to speak. Yep. And then from then, I don't remember how it all branches out, but, one gig to another gig to another gig to another gig. Yeah, yeah. And by the time I was out of high school, I was playing every weekend. Yeah. Getting in a van. There was one particular band I was in that I would, meet the van, get in the van, and off we would go for the weekend or whatever, and come back and deposit me back. And then I would go to school. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. You probably did the same thing.
I did. I think, I started playing when my first gig was, I think, when I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
To play my first, and it was, I can remember, it was at the Moose Club down in Durham.
Wow.
And I was right across the street from
rough joint.
Yeah, right across the street from the store was a Sunshine Farm store. Anyway, so I was going in. And my parents were going to get a gallon of milk, so I went in to get a gallon of milk. and one of my a drummer, who went to school actually with my brother, he sees me and he kind of, hey, he says, "You play guitar, right?" I says, "Well, yeah. I says, what are you doing Saturday?
Right.
I
Yeah.
says, well, nothing. He says, well, you're playing a gig. He says, oh, okay.
Great.
So I'll, and again, like you, I didn't have a car. Says,
Yeah.
I'll pick you up. So here, okay, never played in public, really.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
We played for family functions and all the picnics and all that kind of stuff and so forth. But this is the first time. So he picks me up, and I had my Fender Super Reverb, okay?
Yeah.
And I had a whole suitcase full of fake books.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought the fake books. But anyway, we did this gig down in Durham at the Moose Club, and that's where it all started. And I can remember I got.
So what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So he says, I got paid. The first gig, I got paid $12. I says, holy crap!
Yeah, this is
This is
great.
money,
Yeah.
and it just started to roll from there. And all these kids that were in high school that were working at McDonald's or all these play for $2 an hour or $1.75 an hour. I'd go play weddings on a weekend for Christ's sake and make bank, and to come home and whatever. So
me too. Oh, absolutely, 100%.
it worked out.
And there were ladies out there too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. It's just like, man.
Yeah.
So
This is the life for me.
so
Turns out, I might have made better choices in life, but
nah,
it's the good old days.
It is.
There
So
were enough gigs. There was
were.
like kind of a circuit. You could. I don't know if you could do that as an adult now, but for that period of time in your life, it's a great job.
hell yeah.
It pays well. It's
Sure.
fun. There's excitement.
A 4-hour gig for Christ's sake, and as the days went on and the years go on, all of a sudden you're making $50, you're making $70, you're making $100 a gig, and
That's where it stops.
Yeah.
And you're still making only $100.
well, yeah,
That's it. You hit the ceiling.
It's crazy, and I think you and some of the guests that you've had on, to think, and we made more money back in the '80s than
Right.
than you're still making the same money now.
Whatever. I mean, it happens. It does happen. But yeah, those were the good old. I mean, I'm glad that I guess when you think about, I don't know what the thing is they say now, how we're the 1,000 hours or whatever.
Sure.
But I mean, that's where we got them.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, how lucky you're like, hey, I'm getting my hours and I'm getting paid to learn. Like, to me, getting paid to learn or problem solve or think is the best. That's the best.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real deal. That's real life. It's not. You don't find that stuff in textbooks.
Right.
You have to experience it, and again, you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, and
Yep.
okay, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, and there was a lot of not going to do's that agains.
So,
But yeah, that's how it started. Anyway, that's how it started for me.
yeah,
And just leapfrog from,
I mean, some of the people, you played with a litany of pretty heavy hitters, throughout the years.
I guess so, right? Eventually,
and-
eventually,
and,
sure.
and so forth, and you still get calls, and
I still get calls, yeah.
I mean, that's a great, it's encouraging, and it's fulfilling too to people that recognize, okay, that your playing ability and your, again, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I mean, my personality is lousy, but that's okay. Most people put up with it.
John,
Most people.
it's great. I mean,
Well,
I
under the right circumstances, I can be very affable. It's true. It's true.
So anyway, that's great, John. I think from that standpoint, I being able to play. I know you've played with Danny Cooch.
Yeah. Danny Korchmar.
And how did that come about?
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So Danny Korchmar was, and will always be kind of like one of the first. The way I think about Danny, because this has happened, we were talking before about how everything's connected when you meet the right person and you realize, like, Danny Korchmar is a guitar player, like a session guitar player, I guess is the easiest way to describe him.
Yep.
But my point is, he's one of those guys that if you just listen to the radio, you hear him every day.
Yep.
Without realizing. Like, he played on many, many classic albums.
Yep.
Like, his career started in New York City back in the day. He was James Taylor's boyhood friend. So it became, and he played with Carole King back then too. So that whole L.A., and then they all kind of moved to L.A. So James Taylor, Carole King, Jackson Brown, Don Henley, and then it gets crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, he to me was I guess no disrespect to anybody else, but like the biggest fish that I ever played with.
Right.
And I was really fortunate to find out I made a record. Jim Chapdelaine, great producer, a huge mentor for me. We were making a lot of records back around the turn of the century, and we made a record for a woman called Dana Pomfret, who was wonderful. And Danny was living up here as one of his children were high school age, so he ended up here in Connecticut and wanted to play gigs. And he was like, who are the cats around here? And he, luckily enough, asked her, and she was like, call Jon Peckman. And I was, I lucked out. So like he just called me out of the blue.
Oh.
It was like, Dana said, you're the dude.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And that's how it happened. He just said, I want to play some gigs. I want to know who the cats are around here.
Yep.
And I think he was involved with Tim McDonald already. I think was on board, another great guitar player, singer from around here. Well, from the Bay Area, but has been here for a while. And then the hunt was on for the bass player. But yeah, that's how it happened. Danny just called me, and it was just so funny because Dana, she gave me the heads up and said, because I'm a total music nerd. She's like, do you know who Danny Korchmar is? And I'm like, yeah, I do. She's like, well, he's going to be calling you for, I'm like, oh. So I just made sure I Googled and, got my act together and made sure I knew exactly who he was and everything. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was nerve wracking.
I can remember seeing you guys at a gig at Black Eyed Sally's.
Yeah.
With Tim and Eddie.
And then Eddie Corvo.
Yeah.
The Middletown royalty. We got to get him up here.
Yes.
I keep trying to chase him around.
Yes.
But anyone from Middletown knows the Corvos, knows the Corvo brothers. Eddie's the bass player.
Yep.
And so we got him on bass.
And you guys got a lot in common because you're both left-handed.
Yeah, lefty. We had actually my friend Tom Izzo. He's left-handed too. We were playing gigs together, the three of us, and Eddie's like, "Hey man, we were like just kind of doing throw together gigs." He goes, "Man, we should start a band. The name of the band will be Not Right." That's the name of the band because we're all left-handed, all three of us.
Nice.
So,
Well,
but that's how that happened.
Sure.
And that was a huge, for me, it was huge. It was a big education. He's a great player.
I think, and a nice guy too. I know you introduced me to him, and he's
really
just
sweet,
down
really
to earth,
sweet
and you don't see the attitude and all that kind of stuff. But
really cool, really nice guy.
Yeah. So anyway, so as far as what I know, Beatles is pretty much your. Going back to questions,
I guess.
What's your take? What's your favorite Beach Boy album? Let me ask you that.
Oh boy, yikes! I guess I would say Pet Sounds, like everybody. Although I'm really into the Smile thing.
Okay,
I don't know if you know.
That's the latest. That's a newer one.
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's something that It was the Abandoned album that was supposed to be the follow up to Pet Sounds in like '67.
Yeah,
he never finished it back then.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of got him to finish it probably 15 years ago, something like that. So, but Pet Sounds.
That's happening.
My mom had it.
Yeah.
Well, we had it because of my uncle.
Yeah.
The record company uncle. So he worked for Capitol. So the band, Beach Boys, Beatles, those records were always in the house. I got really lucky, when I realized that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And my mom, for some reason, Pet Sounds came out in '66. I was born in '67. My mom really liked Pet Sounds. Uh-huh. My dad, once again, this is kid stuff.
Yeah.
But my mom, for some reason, she really liked Pet Sounds. So I remember hearing that a lot around the house.
Yeah.
And when I got older, going through the record collection, going, I remember this, and then just going, whoa, wow, this is really, I don't know what to say about Pet Sounds. It's like a recipe. Like if it hits you in the heart, it hits you.
Yeah.
But I also have friends who I really respect go, I don't get it. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. No, it either hits you or doesn't.
It either hits you or doesn't. I think whatever. For me, I think when I rediscovered it, I was at that age, like the album's about kind of becoming an adult.
Yep.
And I rediscovered that album at that point in my life, and it just was like, oh, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You know, what you think is your first real relationship, and you're trying to be an adult and trying to get your own life, and so Pet Sounds grafted itself onto me.
Well, you know, I mean, when did Brian leave the group?
We stopped touring in probably 65, 66.
Okay.
Is when he decided to just stay home and make the records in the studio with studio musicians, and then have the guys in the band overdub the vocals and maybe do a couple of little things.
Now, I can remember seeing, and Ron and I used to go up to one of her favorite places was up to Hampton Beach, and I can remember seeing the Beach Boys at the casino up there, up on the second floor and so forth. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's quite the place. But they were. This is probably about 7-8 years ago.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so forth.
Was it the Mike Love Beach Boys, or
Yes.
was it okay?
Yes, the Mike Love and so forth. And I tell you, they were great. It's you bring back those tunes, man. They're
Song after song after song after song after song. Yeah,
the longevity is just like, okay, yeah,
and you know every song, whether you know it or not.
exactly.
It's just like, oh
Yeah,
that one, this one. Yeah,
and their harmonies were tight. Everything, it was like, holy crap.
Yeah,
it was really good. So
yeah.
Anyway, okay. So now that we got that out of the way,
Favorite Beach Boys record.
favorite Beach Boys record. So, okay, you're going back to the questions here.
Sure.
Okay, your favorite food. Okay.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah, I mean, I always say Mexican.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, I guess that's the cuisine. As far as the specifics, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you.
You could put mole on a rat's ass. You know what I mean? And I would be fine with that. Mole burrito.
Yep, there
mole
you go.
enchilada of any kind.
That's it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, Mexican, that's fine with me. I
Fantastic.
could eat that every day. Yeah, no sweat.
So anyway,
sweat.
so what's your okay, getting on, I mean, you primarily made your living, okay, as a musician.
Kinda, yeah.
I think you've been so far and been able to do that, and then okay.
Not easy.
No.
Yeah.
So tell me how you met Paula.
How I met Paula.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I don't know if I can actually tell this story. Let me see if I can.
Was she on a gig?
She was at a gig.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of funny.
Okay.
See, hopefully this won't be. I don't think this will be an issue. I'm just gonna be honest. All right. So I was playing with a duo called Sweeter Than Wine.
Okay.
They were two women.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Two women, guitar players. I think one played. They might have both played acoustic anyway. Both played guitar. Both sang. They were great. They were really, really good. They had this perfect thing going on. It was almost like a Lennon and McCartney thing. They were both writers, both singers. And when one would sing their song, you would be like, she's the best one. I love her. And then the other one would sing and you go, oh no, she's the best. And then you're like, you got to have them both. There's no way.
Yeah.
So I discovered them. They played at the Hungry Tiger like every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I would go see, I was friends with them. I knew them from somewhere. And I would go to see their gig. And they're gay. They were a couple.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I would go as far as to say as the scene was gay, but there was a gay element to the.
Okay.
And so anyway, of course, eventually I ended up in the band because I couldn't control myself.
Okay.
I want to get involved. And they said, oh, come up and if you want to bring a drum or something. So I started bringing a djembe and taught myself to play it. And so then we were a three-piece.
Yeah.
And so I played with them for, a year or two. We're kind of getting our thing going every Tuesday and it's packed and everyone's having a good time. And I was single. But, your odds were kind of weird because, not every girl was available to you, if you know what I mean. And so my wife is from Manchester, Connecticut, where this gig took place. And she was a face in the crowd that I noticed.
Yep.
And you know, we started chit chatting, and I just assumed, how we doing there? We all right?
Yeah, we're good.
I started chit chatting with her one day with no high hopes or anything, and I said, "So what brings you around?" And she's like, "Oh well, you know, I have a crush on somebody in the band." And I thought, "Oh, that's too bad. You know, she probably likes one of the girls." I just thought that.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay it any mind, and I just kept doing my thing.
Yeah.
And then after a while, she finally, after a month or two, she's just like, "Are you going to ask me out?" And I was like, "What?" I didn't know. She was trying to hit on me. And I had no idea.
The lights go on.
So I was playing hard to get without realizing I was playing hard to get. And
That's funny.
And because I thought that she was unavailable, I didn't give her my rap, my single guy.
Okay.
You know, I didn't give her. I was just myself around her. I was totally unguarded. And so that's how it happened.
That's what did it.
It was beautiful. But if I thought that she was, I would have, "Oh, hey, baby." And I would have blown it like I blew it with every other girl before then. But because I thought she was, you know, unavailable, so to speak.
Sure.
I was myself.
That's funny.
It was really funny. And I pushed her to her breaking point, because she was just like, "This guy, I keep hitting on this guy and he keeps ignoring me."
Nice.
And I didn't even know I was doing it.
Wow.
So then by the time it happened, it was just like, okay, here we go. Wow. So that's how I met Paula. She was at a gig.
Now, how many years ago was that?
Man, that probably would have been 1994-ish.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And we've been together ever since.
Well, it took a while for you guys to get married.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
You know.
We got married 15 years ago.
Okay.
So we lived together for years. A handful of years before we got married.
Nice.
It's whatever.
It's been working ever since, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is.
It's the best thing that ever happened.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. But that's how I met Paula.
Yeah.
She's just a girl at a gig.
There you go.
But, you know.
There is always a girl at a gig.
Yeah, I guess.
Unbelievable.
I guess, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else we got?
I don't know. I don't know. What do you want to... I don't know the lineage.
What's next for you?
Next?
Yeah, I mean,
gee whiz,
you know,
a dirt nap. You know, I don't really. I don't know. I don't think about next. I to be honest with you, it's gonna sound crazy, but I never thought of a career.
Yeah,
I just was always curious to progress as a player and to become the player that I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no disrespect to anybody that I've ever played with, because I've learned something from everybody. But when I got the validation from Danny Korchmar, I kind of was like, you know, I think I might be done as far as chasing. I thought, you know, I think I'm just going to let things be. Happen. Rather than I felt in a way that was, I'm not saying that his opinion is the only opinion that matters or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, I thought, well, he's played with everybody.
Right.
And his favorite drummers are my favorite drummers. And not to pat myself on the back, but to have him consider me in that group.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to enjoy my life now.
Yeah.
And just kind of teach kids, do my little things that I do, enjoy my life, and kind of come off the road a little bit and just chill.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty much kind of doing.
Well, you know, you guys have, you got a nice house now.
Yeah.
You know, that's
finally got
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know, everybody knows that, you know, all of the playlist that you put together on SoundCloud, man. How did you get into that?
Oh, what?
Putting mixes together.
I've done that forever. I remember I grew up in the 80s. I don't know. You probably didn't do this, but this was like a thing in the 80s. Mixtapes. That's all we did. You had a cassette player, a cassette recorder, and a turntable. And you get into that attitude of like, I don't know if this is good or bad, but instead of listening to albums, when you realize you could make your own album, this track, that track, this track. Yeah. So I started doing that in high school.
Yeah.
Making mixtapes. And then once you got a cassette deck that you could duplicate, I would make one mixtape and then make, 5 copies. Hey, Dan Hollenbeck's on the scene. Here he is.
Dan Hollenbeck.
Hey, episode number 1.
This was Dan Hollenbeck.
Yeah, there he's. You can't. I don't know if you can see him.
The bigger cameras over there on this.
Wearing a Sub Pop T-shirt. Excellent work.
Yes.
Way to go.
Oh, you guys know Sub Pop?
Yeah.
Practically. I was just talking about how I invented Sub Pop.
Oh, I had a picture.
You're welcome. You're
Sub
welcome.
Pop
Dan's going to take John's picture.
Yeah, Don. We're
Can you
gonna.
set up for me? I'll take some
Sure.
Yeah. He's just gonna pretend that.
I'm not a cameraman.
No, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
was hoping the digital one.
Just
so funny.
Just look through the thing and squeeze the button.
Beautiful. Got it.
All right.
All right. Look
We'll
pretty,
edit.
John.
You're gonna edit you out entirely. No, but mixtapes. So then you would make copies of your mixtapes and pass them out to your friends.
Yeah.
And then so once I started doing that in high school, I can't listen to anything without thinking about how it's gonna fit next to something else.
Right.
And so my whole life is one constant mixtape of like, this is summer, this is spring, this is what happened. And I realized that I'm trying not to wreck the joint, dude.
Not even here, guys.
No, but I love to express myself in that way.
Sure.
And I always have.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just pick the songs and then later go, oh, I see why you picked those. You were thinking about it's some weird form of self reflection or something.
Yeah.
And then I used to make, when I was learning to DJ, which I also do, I would make copies of CDs and give them out. And it just progressed. And then nowadays you can post them.
Sure.
You can make, so it's just the same thing that I've always done.
Nice.
It's just now it's on, like a platform. You just upload it. And then people, hey, I'll see you later. Dan Hollenbeck's
Put
out.
the boxes downstairs.
I'm sorry?
Should I put the boxes in the basement?
Yeah, if you want. Just bring them down. Yeah, that's fine.
In the basement. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
See ya.
Appreciate it, bud.
Gonna have Dan on again someday.
Yeah, Dan is, whoa.
Oh, yeah. Later.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into that, and I just love doing it.
Well,
I do it every week. Every week I'm thinking.
Well,
It just helps me to.
Yeah, and your taste in music is just so varied and so eclectic, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. But it's not that your taste is so variety based, but it's also there's a lot of knowledge base behind that. Okay, of who played with who,
Sure.
who did this, and
Sure.
how this album was created,
Sure.
who played on that album.
I'm always fascinated by
and
that stuff.
it's like, man, you're like an encyclopedia.
Turns out I didn't set out to be one. I just I read a lot of books, so read a book about a musical thing and just go, I got to find every song that they're talking about, so I can understand the book and then put them in the mix. And so I guess I'm doing that without realizing I'm doing it, but I just do it because I want to hear what they're talking about.
Bass players. Who's your favorite bass player?
Ooh.
I mean, obviously you played with Danny Cooch. And
You mean locally?
Locally or nationally?
Man, gee whiz. I'm really, I tell you what, props to Connecticut. I've only ever lived here, so I don't know what anybody says. I mean, I'm sure there's great players in LA and New York. I've been lucky, man. There's world class. I've been really lucky as a drummer. So bass players, Eddie Corvo, Jay Wiggin, great bass player, friend of mine. So good. Dave Lavolsi is another one.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot more, but those are like the 3.
Yeah.
You can't go. They're each different. They each have, to me, a different thing that they do. But I mean, just world class. You can't go wrong with any of those guys. And there's other ones that I'm forgetting. But those are the big 3 for me. And most of the gigs I do, one or the other of them is on it. I'm just fine. Don't have to worry about a thing.
Okay, nationally, who do you think?
Bass players?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know.
Lee Sklar?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been there and done that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like, McCartney, obviously. I'm really into reggae.
Uh-huh.
So Family Man Barrett, Bob Marley,
Okay.
those guys, I love that playing.
So you got into ska for a little while there.
Yeah, real heavy. Yeah, everything. all of it. Ska, rocksteady, reggae, the whole. Yeah, I spent years.
Famous ska band you're into?
Scatolites.
Scatolites. I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, yeah.
You turned me on to that.
They invented it.
Oh, man.
They're the originators.
That groove is just so infectious, man. And it's there.
Yeah, and that drummer died. I got to see them once with him.
Yeah,
and it was just like, wow. It was mind blowing.
Yeah,
and he passed away, never to be heard from again.
It's too bad. It's amazing that how many great musicians have passed and gone and never to. But they've gone, but they're never forgotten.
No,
no. Because you can hear they have a signature, okay, that just identifies them
forever.
And it's that one of those things. So anyway,
yeah, I have so many things that I love. We can talk about that forever.
Yeah, fantastic, cool, man.
Yeah.
What else?
I don't know. White Album's my favorite album.
White Album's your favorite album. Okay, there you go.
I don't know what else. What else could there be? What am I doing? Where have I been?
Yeah, what are you doing? Where have you been?
Man, yeah, I've been around. Like I say, eventually, the Vic connection led me to whatever. Tony Richards and the K-Man Band was a big deal back in the certain corner of the state.
Okay.
That was where I started, kind of full time, and then 8 to the Bar was the next thing. And
right.
I did that for years and years.
Right.
And that was kind of the most professional outfit.
Right.
Full time.
And then you did the Jeff Pitchell thing. And
Yep.
That happened.
Yep. Did the Jeff Pitchell thing. Yep.
Yep.
There's so many. I mean, not this. Oh, there's so many, but yeah.
No, but yeah, and those are all groups that, those are.
They're all bricks in the wall.
They're all bricks in the wall, but they're all they're all A-listers. As far as and so forth. I mean, Christine Ullman, you've been,
sure.
and so forth.
Yep.
And I understand that we're going to try to possibly have her on as a
We
guest.
are, yeah. Rumor has it, yeah. She's on the list. We got the list.
That's going to be awesome.
Unfortunately, nobody on that list could show up today, which is why this is happening. But that's all right. I love talking about myself. I wish it was like this. If it's a Jon Peckman podcast, can it just be this?
Sure.
It'll just be me.
There you go. It's all about you, John. No. But anyway, no, I think, from the, and I thank you for, I know when I approached you on this podcast idea, you were very apprehensive and so forth. And, I appreciate you indulging me, but I think you can see that there is definitely an appetite out there.
Turns out my thing is one of my weird little contracts I have with myself, and I've done this plenty of times in my life. I'm not the most ambitious guy in the world, but if opportunity comes to me through no effort of my own, my job is to do it. I say if you run from a challenge that comes to you, then that's not acceptable. So I didn't want to do this, but you posed the challenge, and I was just like, all right, you don't say no is number one. Number two, it's you. Well, you asked me to do something, I'm going to do it.
I appreciate that.
Well, of course.
I appreciate
the way it goes.
Anyway.
That's that,
All right.
You don't say no to Dave.
No, hey, it's we go back a long time, John.
And it's been fun, and I love doing this. So it turns out
this is I'm enjoying it as much as you are. I really am, just to see.
We just got to get more views than Cleary and Joe Martin and Michael Arafade. We're in a battle right now with the views. I'm going to conquer. I'm going to
exactly. For all you people out there, wherever you get your podcasts, we're on. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Anchor. We're on all of them. So
Amazon.
It's out there, so forth.
Yep.
So
John, that's my name. As long as you search for my name, you'll find it.
Exactly. And we even post-process this, and we also send this over to the Comcast channel.
We do?
Over in the Middletown area. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we because I've been doing Portland on the Move over at the Comcast channel for 20 years.
Oh wow!
And obviously, one thing that we really didn't touch upon, but that has affected everybody, not only in the entertainment industries, but the whole COVID thing has thrown everybody for a loop.
Yep.
So I mean, the studio has been closed over at Comcast. So they are looking for content. So when I approached
Perfect.
it. I says,
You're like,
I send them
this
the
is
link.
technically content. That's all we can say.
Well, and the thing is, it's again, it's another door that people can get at you. It really is.
Fantastic. I love it.
So, but yeah, I think
I'm totally into it.
we're we survived the COVID thing, so I think things are getting back to normal. Bands are starting to play again,
Yep.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, I had a couple of gigs. Yep.
So, which is a good thing. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, is that about it, John?
Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have been with the famous, infamous Mr. Jon Peckman.
That's me.
And we're right here live in the Comcast, in the Connecticut Valley School of Music podcast.
Now you sound like me at the end of us.
Yes. Come over the bridge, look left, and stop in and say hi. And don't forget, check out all of John's podcasts. And until next week, here we go. This is Mr. Jon Peckman.
Thank you.
Yes, the Jon Peckman Show.
Yeah, man. I'm everywhere.
He's out there. And he's even playing on his own intro music.
Yeah, we'll talk about that someday. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thanks, John. Till next time. And listen for the hi-hat. There we go.